Hello, my famous friends, and welcome to Fame Ready, the podcast to show you that anything is possible. Yes, including fame. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're probably like, what is happening, Katrina? Why are you sitting at a desk? Why do you look a little bit pale and sickly? And here's the thing, you guys, one word, two words. Home renovations, they had to happen. It's something that's been on my vision board. It is a requirement if Gabriel and I want to actually like make a profit off of our house when we sell it in a couple years. It's necessary, but boy, is it painful. We got back from vacation on Monday, and now we are in the process of converting our I guess we're not doing our master bathroom quite yet, although that is kind of like the next thing on the list. But our master bathroom used to have like a traditional like door that opens and closes. Instead, we have, I say we, like I've done anything, Gabriel. Gabriel has now installed like, it's called a pocket door. So it just slides back and forth to actually give ourselves more space in our master bath. And with that, because we tore out a whole wall, again, like I tore out the wall, I've just been working, working and watching and listening, honestly, to the incessant drilling and hammering and all of that. But that will hopefully open up space in the bathroom. And since Gabriel has now torn out an entire wall in our closet, we've had to take all of the closet shelves down. We're actually redoing our master bedroom closet, which that's like the best part, right? Because I mean, we live in a very quaint townhouse in British Columbia, Canada. It's cute, okay? I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a homeowner and that we, have this house that actually has so much space for the two of us. We're really, really lucky. But it was built in 2007 and it needs some upgrades. And the closet, it had wire shelves in it, and they were like coming out of the wall because there was just so many clothes hanging on them. And the whole closet situation, it was never great. Like there were some really tall shelves where I tried to keep all my sweaters, but I couldn't really reach. So I would just like throw the sweaters on the shelf and they'd be kind of hanging down. It's a whole thing. But, anyways, now all the shelves are out. And with this little renovation, we're going to get a brand new closet and it's going to be painted on the inside and it's going to like match the rest of our bedroom, which was one of the things we actually renovated first when we moved in. But this is all my really long way of saying the podcast studio, the room that I use like next to my office, it is the closet right now. All of the clothes that Gabriel had to take out are now living in there until further notice. And I was like, what is the lowest lift way for me to continue to record this podcast? Because over the last couple weeks, I mean, we've seen an incredible spike in new listeners, downloads, people sharing. So we can't stop now. We can't just pause because the house is getting a little bit of a facelift. I mean, even if I was getting a little bit of a facelift, I don't know if we could stop. That's when you just do like audio only, right? Because I will be so transparent and say like when I'm 60, like I have full plans of getting like a little lift. Like if you can afford it, why would you not? Anyways, I digress. So that's why we've got a bit of a change of scenery. We've got a different camera that I fear doesn't make me look as good. I was like, usually when I do a Zoom call, I get to use like the Zoom blur filter, which like, kind of erases some of these pores and these wrinkles, but Riverside doesn't have that, unfortunately. This is me today. So, with that, okay, we've got a lot of really amazing things happening in the works. My business, I mean, I just mentioned how this podcast is like really taken off. Well, so is my business. And I feel really lucky, you guys. I mean, last week, when am I recording this? It's January 16th. So 16 days into 2026. And if this is any indicator of how the rest of the year is going to go, we better hold on tight because it's going to be incredible. And I say this knowing that there are so many things happening in the world right now, tragedies, conflict, challenges, unhappiness, discomfort, fear, all of the things. And I have felt like at odds over the last couple weeks of like, well, how do you continue to show up when there are a lot of people feeling a lot of different things right now? And at the end of the day, this may be controversial. I don't actually care. I've got to run a business. And my business, I mean, I woke up to an incredible voice note from a client who's feeling inspired, excited, all of the different things, endless possibilities for her business. And we had a coaching call yesterday. She sent me a voice note today just to say thanks and to tell me how good she was feeling after that call. And we can't stop, right? Like we can't stop because of the fear. We can't stop because of the uncertainty. There have been many times when I've felt like, oh, well, if the whole world is going to shit, what the fuck is the point? We actually don't know those things, right? So I am going to continue to show up for my business, sell because it's in my best interest. My services help people, they make people feel excited, inspired. They actually, I like to think that the work I do helps people like not spend so much time like worrying about the future and instead being excited for a version of it because at the end of the day, like those big kind of scary apocalyptic things, we don't have control over those anyways. So while it's uncomfortable to think that those are things that could happen, we can't spend our time worrying about them, our precious time worrying about them, right? So I just had to get that out of the way because, over the last couple of weeks, I have been sharing more and more about the financial part of my business in a way that I like to call like fame to fortune. Because over the last 12 months, I have created a very famous feeling personal brand. Okay. And I've done this through visibility, right? I mean, it has been incredible over the last even like 2 months to just see how many like random referrals, messages, opportunities that I've gotten just through like word of mouth and people knowing my name and being able to find me really easily. And that's great. That's fame. And you're listening to Fame Ready. So obviously, as you listen to these episodes week over week, if you implement everything that I tell you to implement, I believe that you too will feel famous very, very quickly. But here's the thing, fame is great. It feels good. It looks good on social media. But fortune, okay, the cold hard cash that comes from having a profitable personal brand, a 6-figure personal brand, that's what changes your life, right? That's what makes your vision board become reality. We need money to live, to thrive. And I know I have shied away from sharing, and not so much on this podcast. I think I've always been really good on this podcast about talking about financial returns and the investments I've made. Certainly on social media, I've shied away from like making it about the money. And I think there's so many reasons why. The one that comes to my mind like most often is like, are my parents going to think it's so fucking weird that I'm talking about money on the internet? That's the biggest one. That is the biggest block. And I guess the next time I see my parents, I could just ask them. And then if they do think it's weird or wrong or unnecessary, even like, well, what does that change? Nothing. Because again, I'm out here trying to run a business, people. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get more comfortable with is talking about the financial impact of visibility. And you're going to see a lot of this unfold over the next year when it comes to my events, my book, and all of that. And I've been lucky enough to have some marketing coaching support by someone I really, really respect and admire, and someone I actually have a very long history with too, which I think just makes it so much better. And she has supported me in understanding where there's a gap in my business, and that gap is the financial return. The gap is, you know, I talk about visibility. I'm really good at getting people hyped about PR, interested in the topic, but my conversion rate into someone, even if you, my friend listening to this podcast, maybe you're someone who has listened to every single episode. You hear me talk about the Fame Ready Entrepreneur Program. You hear me talk about my coaching, all of the different things that I do. You hear me talking about these things. But for some reason, you haven't pulled the trigger in working with me. And I think that's so interesting. And how I kind of came to this particular thing, this particular revelation was last month. I hosted a free masterclass. There were about 60 people in it. It was a great time. People were excited, engaged, the vibes were good. And then I honestly left that masterclass being like, okay, I'm about to make like $50,000 because everyone that attended is about to become a client, upsell, etc., etc. And do you know how many people did? Zero. Zero people. And I didn't make it a big deal, honestly. And I'll tell you why I didn't make it a big deal actually, because it's pertinent to the rest of this episode. I didn't make that a big deal because I'm at a point now when it comes to my personal brand. There are about 5 different revenue streams that I have that are constantly working for me at all times. So I'm not fully reliant on where is my next coaching client coming from. I need to, I need to enroll someone into Fame Ready. I need to do this. I need to do that. I don't have to worry about that part anymore because I have other revenue streams supporting me, brand partnerships, talking about event revenue, paid speaking, podcast advertisements. Those are all things that I'm going to talk to today in this podcast episode about what that looks like for you and how you can start to implement that too. Because despite the fact that I had 0 conversions from what was supposed to be a conversion event, I learned a lot. And unpacking this with the person supporting me on my marketing right now was, yeah, you've got people so excited, so engaged. Your audience feels hot because it is, but you haven't communicated why this is important to them right now. And how do you communicate that something is important to them right now? Typically, you got to tell them why it's important financially or to their health or happiness. So that's what I'm working on. We're getting really comfortable just talking about what the financial return of magazine features could be. Like if you invest in paid public relations, I hate to see someone invest in paid PR at a point where I can visibly see they're not going to convert anything from that. I um I've obviously been able to kind of seamlessly secure brand partnerships with a very small following in comparison to large creators. So I want to touch a little bit on that because it really is all of these revenue streams working together that has given me the opportunity to have this business that feels more comfortable, less reliant on bringing on clients. And you can do this too. And I think I built my whole brand on not gatekeeping public relations. And one of the parts of that is because I don't feel like agencies, PR agencies specifically, do a great job of connecting press wins to actual income. You can spend a lot of money on a PR agency to do outreach for you. I actually saw a thread. Let me see if I can pull it up because I think this is really important actually for this conversation. So let me just find it quickly. I hope that I can find it quickly, honestly. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so I'll attribute it first. So this is from Schwinnebago Brand on Threads. He says, I hired a PR agency for our brand in 2023, and after $20,000 in spend, I was featured in a roundup on a B-list publication, which of course drove no traffic. In 2026, traditional PR is even less relevant for a brand. You can get far better reach and return on your own through content and creators. Publications drive little traffic and awareness unless they're A-list with a compelling post. But 99% of publications do not want to do a glaze piece on your brand, product, and story because it's not interesting. And I was like, yeah, this is what I've been saying, guys. This is what I've been saying. PR agencies will charge you an arm and a leg for outreach, and you likely will not end up in one of those top tier publications. You might get a handful of mentions in our articles that don't drive traffic, because what does traditional media do for you now? It's all about building brand authority, which means you need to have a warm audience. You need to have people that are already engaged with you to make that work for you. So I feel this passionately about PR agencies and why they're a waste of money. But I now have to tell you, okay, well, if PR agencies don't do a great job of linking their efforts to your income and your return, how do you actually do that? Because I built my brand on that, and I want to make that super super clear. Okay? So, today I'm going to tell you about the 5 revenue streams that I've used to build a six-figure personal brand in 2026, or I guess I built it in 2025. But this is what I'm going to continue to grow in 2026. In 2026, I'm targeting $500,000 in revenue for my personal brand, which is really exciting. And these are the revenue streams that are going to contribute to that. So let's chat about each one. Quick sip of coffee before I move on. The other thing I just want to mention is I'm actually running a challenge called Turning Fame to Fortune, which is a 5-day challenge. It's going to start at the beginning of February. If you're listening to this and February 2026 is long gone, by then it will be evergreen. So you can hop in at the price point that the landing page shows you. But if you're listening to this in January 2026, which I'm assuming lots of you are, you can join the Fame to Fortune challenge. We've already got 3 people inside. Just soft launched it this week. And every single day, I'm going to be breaking down a legit case study from myself and my clients about what it's actually looked like to secure these types of opportunities I'm about to talk about, what it actually looks like to take the next step to do some of these things. And if you are really serious about growing a profitable personal brand and you like this episode, that challenge really is the next step after you listen to this. So let's get into it, okay? So the very first revenue stream that I'm using to build my six-figure personal brand is obviously coaching, okay? I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about coaching. 2025 was the year that I grew my coaching programs, right? 2025 was the first year I had no agency. I was starting from scratch, and I was like, I am just a PR for personal brands coach. So I built my coaching business from scratch in 2025. And, by the end of the year, we built a $200,000 business just through coaching, which is great for someone in their first year. Let's celebrate that shit. So that's great. Coaching remains one of the most significant revenue streams of my business as I kind of move along. And I think it's important to maintain it for legitimacy also. Obviously, if I'm going to write books, have a podcast, um, run events on using PR to grow a personal brand, the more clients that I can work with and implement my frameworks and coach and support, the better it is for me when it comes to talking about case studies and seeing what's working and what's not working. And I don't intend to be a coach forever. For the foreseeable future, here I am. But that really is why, because I want to continuously help other business owners in achieving their most famous and fortune generating dreams. So it means consistently working with others to make sure that, my philosophies and my strategies aren't out of date. So when it comes to coaching, I offer the same program that offers the same results in a group and in one-on-one. So I always say that the only difference is like how fast you want to move. So as of now, my one-on-one coaching program, it's actually only open to people with teams. So if you want to work with me one-on-one, you need to have capacity to shift some tasks to your team, because this is a pretty intensive program where I get into the business. There's going to be content plans that you need. There's going to be pitching that needs to happen. We create media lists that you/your team will be reaching out to. And while I've offered this service to individuals in the past, I'm realizing now that it is its most effective when the personal brand has someone on their team that can support them in the work that I'm supporting them with, because it's a lot. Building a personal brand that has revenue streams like brand partnerships, events, speaking, that's a full-time job. And I think that's what people forget. We think like, oh, if I have a coaching business, I have a personal brand. Not really. If you have a coaching business, you have an amazing opportunity to build a personal brand, one that lands speaking opportunities, media, interviews, all of that. But you there's other work that needs to happen, and it usually means taking on more projects that take more time. So you need to have someone in place to support you. So that's how I've shifted my one-on-one program. Is at a much higher price point now too. So typically it's someone that is at that $500,000 to $1 million mark, that has someone in place to support them. So that really is what my one-on-one program looks like right now. The best way to work with me, and honestly, in my opinion, it is the most fun, is through my group coaching program, Fame Ready Entrepreneur Program. And I've actually created a VIP tier in that program where you can work with me one-on-one if that's of interest to you and you want that high touch support. So all of that information on like the actual logistics are in the show notes. But my coaching is still obviously, I would say like 50% of my monthly income, which, I mean, it's used to be 100%. So it's amazing that I've been able to shift it like this. And actually like really impressive. I'm thinking right now it's the month of January, and yeah, at least 50% of my projected income for this month, which is over $20,000 for January, from like 50% is from coaching, and then the other 50% is actually from working with brands. It's fucking cool. It's so cool to say out loud. But the coaching ain't going anywhere because, like I said, it's an important part of me building up my personal brand. And how do I get more brand partnerships, more speaking engagements, more audience building? How do I do that? Well, it's through offering services, digital products, and that sort of thing that helps me build my audience. So that's coaching. I wanted to get that one out of the way really, really quick, just because I know not all of you are coaches. Some of you might have agencies instead where you don't offer coaching, but maybe you do offer some sort of consulting. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that actually in the Fame to Fortune challenge, because there's a really interesting thing that I've done. I've done this now a couple times with sponsors, where it's a sponsor who is interested in sponsoring an event or being a brand partner, but then they're also interested in my coaching programs. And I have basically come up with a format where if someone's interested in sponsoring, they also have access to a higher ticket coaching program, so they can put two and two together and work with me in a really integrated, cohesive way. So if you're someone who is looking to kind of leverage your expertise even more, I mean, offering coaching consulting within a brand partnership is a really easy way to increase that baseline revenue number. Okay. So that's the first one. So, second, brand partnerships. Yep, this is the one. I feel like I'm trying not to make my brand all brand partnerships, but it just so happens that's what a lot of my clients are working on right now. It's what I'm working on right now, since I have an event coming up later this year. And it's just the way that the universe is pushing me. So we're going to keep talking about it. So brand partnerships. When I talk about working with a brand, I think a lot of us automatically think that it must be like this large corporation. We kind of forget that there's a whole pool of small and medium sized business owners who are looking for authentic visibility that you can actually offer them as a personal brand. So, I mean, I have a brand partnership confirmed in my inbox right now. It's only a couple $1,000s, but it's from someone who I would say has a business very similar to mine, but is looking to get more visibility in front of my audience. So I always tell clients, like, don't focus all of your like brand partnerships on these large corporations, which can be challenging to navigate and hard to negotiate with. Sometimes the easiest partnerships are really in that small to medium sized business range. How do you meet those people? You go to events. So right now, I'm negotiating a presenting sponsorship with a firm in Vancouver. I met this person literally at a dinner in November. How did I set up the call and get things moving? I sent her a DM. Okay. We overcomplicate it. We think it needs to be super polished, super professional. Like, just get out there and build the relationships, guys. And then number two is don't be scared to ask when it comes up. So I think this is actually the benefit to, once you feel really confident about the fact that you are someone that works with brands, you know what your offering is, whether it's like podcast speaking engagements, integrating brand partnerships. When you know exactly like what that's going to look like for brand partners, you can start to talk about it a little bit more. So when I was at this event in November where I met this potential sponsor, I was a couple weeks, I would say that was probably a month after I ran Big Brand Energy Sessions, which was my 65-person event. Sat down at this table with a couple women from this one firm. I was telling them all about my event and made the plug then that, it's going to be coming back in 2026 and I'll be looking for sponsors. So I planted the seed. And sometimes we like shy away because we don't want people to think that we're salesy or like, that we like want something from them. But here's the beauty also about targeting like these kind of medium size regional businesses. You're likely not talking to like the business owner, right? Because now if I think about this particular firm, there's hundreds of employees. Yeah, it's not like a multinational company, but it's a big business. And the women that I got to connect with obviously represent a department and they're passionate about who they work for, but it's not their money at the end of the day, right? And so there's less of an emotional connection to it. So instead of like, they're not thinking, oh my gosh, like this is coming out of like my personal pocket and my salary. They're like, I have a specific budget allocated to things like these. What is it going to cost? So I want you all to remember that, because I know a lot of people get like nervous about asking and all of that, but shed that part, because once you start playing with like bigger businesses and you're not just like in the kind of solopreneur market, there's much less emotional attachment to money. Okay. So brand partnerships. Okay. So let me just give you an overarching, like what I mean when I talk about brand partnerships. So to me, that's any business that is interested in gaining visibility through your channels. So for me, brand partnerships generally include a combination of social media content, maybe event marketing, podcast advertisements. If I said event marketing, like event hosting, or you can also like do like sponsored speaking engagements, which I'll talk about in a sec. So brand partnerships like typically include a bunch of different touch points, at least in my world. And I'll tell you why I do this. I find it to be more authentic and integrated to the audience if they can see me talking about a product or service in like a couple different ways, right? So if I'm doing a podcast ad about a specific brand and then they see me also do a social media post on it, it feels like there's more relevance and they're like, oh, okay, like, you know, Katrina is obviously like passionate about this brand. Like there's multiple touch points. So it doesn't just feel like I'm doing an ad read on a podcast. So for all of my clients, it's like, what is the personal brand ecosystem? What are all the assets that you actually have where you can incorporate sponsorship and more touch points and leverage different things? So that's brand partnerships. Coffee break, one sec. So I just touched on this earlier, but paid speaking and sponsored speaking gigs. So these are kind of two different things, but I'm gonna meld them together. Paid speaking. I'm gonna do a whole episode on paid speaking because we can like really dive into all the nuance, because it really just is gray area. Um, you can virtually get paid for like any speaking engagement you want to do. You might think that that's not true because people didn't ask for your rate or the application didn't have a place where you could state your rate, but everything is negotiable. So if you're someone who's like, maybe you want to, do a little paid speaking because you enjoy it, but you're not super excited about the idea of Maybe you're like, hey, like I want to get paid to speak, but um, I'm not interested in like just being a speaker for the sake of the visibility. I'm going to point you in the direction of corporate speaking engagements, which is something I started to do a lot of towards the tail end of 2026. Oh my God, I'm getting my years all fucked up. 2025, tail end of 2026 hasn't even come yet. Towards the tail end of 2025. And so corporate speaking engagements generally are not that sexy. Okay. So all of these like really fun, glamorous events that you see online, unless you're someone who has hundreds of thousands of followers or a connection or some sort of really big platform that event sees value in, you're likely not going to be paid to speak at those events. But you have an amazing opportunity to still make sales from being there. Some of the most fun events I've ever spoken at, I've made like $20,000 from speaking to not even that big of an audience, but because it was so aligned with my offer and what I do and my messaging, it was very easy to bring in income and revenue from that particular audience. So that's why I'm okay with like not always getting paid to speak. But if you want to get paid to speak, you need to know that most of those opportunities lie in the corporate world. Okay. So the organizations that have budget for speakers, the events that might have a stipend or cover travel for speakers, like they generally are corporate oriented. So somewhere in your business, you need to be able to speak to a corporate audience and be able to provide value to a corporation. So I'll give you my business as an example. If I'm speaking to a corporate audience, say it's just an executive team or the senior leaders, it's how do executive senior leadership build up a personal brand that supports the organization. Okay. So, very, very different than talking to like entrepreneurs on how to build up their personal brand. Like, it's an entirely different set of content. And the reason why you're going to ask to get or why you're going to ask to get paid to speak to a corporate audience is because you're likely not going to be able as an entrepreneur to convert that audience like you would an entrepreneurial audience, right? Because like think about, if you've ever worked in corporate, I mean for me, like I was never investing like in my professional development outside of work. And maybe that's just a me thing, but I was like, no, like if I'm like building up my professional development, it's because my company's paying for it, something that they want. I want to focus on my own passions outside of work. And maybe that's just a unique experience to me, but um, I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So when you are speaking to a corporate audience, know that you are serving the needs of the corporation. That is where your paycheck is coming from. So it's going to feel different. And you're not going to have the like fun outfit, the like sparkly content, like you're not. And that's okay. It's just a very, very different way of delivering a talk. So I don't knock it, but I just want you to be super, super aware of what that looks like. And in those particular cases, you don't actually need to have a sizzle reel or all of this like really, really polished speaking content, because you might just be delivering like a smaller workshop style talk, right? Like I've made $10,000 from running a workshop for clients before. Because there was also like a coaching element in that. I had to do some prep. I created a talk that was specific to that organization. And so that's where that kind of $10,000 comes from. Okay? It comes from me like building this all out for that organization and then delivering it that way. So you don't necessarily have to be like this perfectly choreographed experienced speaker to deliver a workshop, because it is a very different environment. Okay. So that's a little bit about what paid speaking looks like. The flip side to that is you can also get companies to like sponsor your speaking gig. So say you got like an opportunity to speak at a conference, it's not paid, but maybe somewhere in your talk you can like reference a particular brand or incorporate a brand or a tool or something into your talk. So when you when you think about doing this, it's like, obviously, I want you to be careful because you don't want to lose the plot of whatever keynote talk you're giving at this conference. So whatever brand you choose to integrate should feel super connected to you. This is when that like a larger brand partnership comes into place, because you probably want to like maybe have talked about them before, like maybe in social media content or on a podcast, just so it feels like a, a natural extension of you. But you can ask brands to sponsor your speaking gigs so you can reference your brand or their brand in your talk, and they'll pay you to do that. So that's like kind of a workaround way to also get paid for speaking. Obviously, now again, you're making sure that you're serving someone else's interests at the same time, but that is kind of this alternative way to getting paid to speak as well. And then obviously I alluded to it earlier, that that kind of final way of getting paid to speak is by knowing exactly who your audience is, having a strong offer, and just going up there, delivering an amazing talk. You don't even have to do a pitch at the end. I mean, when I spoke at an event in October and um, made $20,000 in new clients, I did not do a pitch at all. But people were so connected to me. I had spent the weekend making relationships with the audience, and that's why it was really easy to convert them. Okay. So that's speaking. Okay, so the fourth revenue stream when it comes to building a six-figure personal brand is hosting events. And when I say this, most people think about like a 100-person conference that's going to take so much time, energy, money to get off the ground. And it's like, am I really going to go through all of this just to like create a new revenue stream? And here's where I want to like encourage you to flip this, right? So hosting events doesn't always just mean like a large conference style event. These can be small workshops. These can be virtual speaking engagements. These can be like, yeah, online master classes. So it doesn't always have to be like hosting a major complicated conference, right? Uh, I did this back in December. I ran my red carpet year masterclass. I brought on Adobe Acrobat Studio as a sponsor because I integrated their tool into my talk. So that was a really great way to demonstrate like paid speaking, brand partnership, but also hosting an event that I was going to run anyways. Like I would have done that masterclass regardless because it's a funnel, would have done it regardless, but makes it even juicier for me that I got it sponsored. And that really kind of took the weight. I mean, I talked about it at the beginning of this podcast episode. I didn't convert anyone from that masterclass, and that was also okay because I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like I, delivered this masterclass. It was great. Feel really good about it. And I still got paid for it. Okay. So my time and effort to do it in my eyes was still covered because I had brought on a sponsor. And honestly, I probably will never run like a masterclass, a workshop, any in-person event ever without bringing on sponsors now that I have the experience and know how to find them, how to do it, what it looks like, what to offer, because it really makes the process feel so much more like light and expansive and joyful because you're not like doing it for the money. I think my whole life is like me learning how to do things for fun and not for the money. And so when it comes to hosting events, that's the take I want you to have as well. Makes it really easy too. Like the more of these that you do, when you can speak to what the conversion rates would have been, the attendance rates, if you can give examples of like how you would integrate brands into the content, that makes it so much easier to get a yes and quickly. So hosting events, don't knock it till you try it. I was someone who like I planned events in my corporate retail days, and I was like, who would ever do this for fun? I'm stressed, I'm exhausted. And as I started to build my personal brand, I realized how much fun it actually was to like be an event host again. But I do it in a way that feels fun and, really, really authentic to me. Obviously, I know that's not for everyone, but I do know if you're working in the online space right now, if you're a coach, you're obviously running master classes and things like that. So why not get them sponsored? There's so much opportunity for you to do that. Okay. Okay. Finally, the last pillar that you're going to use, or the last thing that you're going to do if you want to build a six-figure personal brand in 2026, is podcast monetization. If you're listening to this and you don't have a podcast, that's okay. I mean, I just gave you 4 other ways that you can monetize your personal brand, but having a podcast is one of those like extra deliverables that you can put into a media kit. It's a way for you to grow your audience. It gives you like another marketing touch point. So if it's not a podcast, maybe you have a YouTube channel, or maybe you have a Substack. I'm not going to talk about Substack monetization. That's so like far outside my area of expertise. And I see a lot of conflicting things on that, but there's probably ways to integrate sponsorship into that. I mean, back in the day, call it 10 years ago, you could get sponsors to invest in like blog posts, right? So maybe you have a blog, maybe there's a way to like integrate that into a package. But for me, one of the ways that I have been able to make selling my event sponsorships, my brand partnerships, my events, like I've been able to make all of those feel easier because I have this podcast, which is also monetizable. Okay. So obviously, one of the most important things that you need to be able to show if you're going to monetize your podcast is consistency. So if you're someone who plays kind of fast and loose with this and like, you're not like doing them on a weekly basis, it's sporadic, not going to be as lucrative. Okay. Because the more consistent you can be with your podcast and make it show brands, show sponsors, show people that are interested in investing in it, the more that you can show them that it's like a consistent piece of your business and you're doing it over and over again, the more that that's going to build up your authority and credibility and have people want to invest in the asset. So that's podcast monetization. When it comes to what that actually looks like, it could be an ad read or it could just be like a product mention. So that's something that we're going to chat a little bit more in Fame to Fortune, which is the 5-day challenge I'm running at the beginning of February. If you're listening to this after the fact, you can hop in, because it'll be evergreen by then. But why not join us live? Because when we kick off, we're going to do a live call. So the very first day of the Fame to Fortune challenge includes a live call where I'm going to talk about how you can set your rates for all of these things. Okay. Because that's always the next question. How do I set my rates for event sponsorships, for podcasts, for speaking gigs? So I'm going to give everybody a really easy formula on how they can set their rates. I'm going to walk through an example of what a media kit actually looks like. We're going to do that all live on the call. And then over the 4 following days, it's going to be all inside Telegram where I'm dropping a case study. So this is either from me or a client, a case study that deep dives into one very specific way we were able to monetize a personal brand in the last 12 months. So for example, one of them is going to be talking about how one of my clients got her first paid speaking gig, which was $1,500, all travel expenses paid. She did that with no sizzle reel and honestly no stage experience. I'm also going to talk about how another client got her very first virtual event sponsored. I'll talk about how I can bring on sponsors for work I'm already planning on doing, which obviously just brings up my baseline revenue. It's going to be really juicy. So every single day, I'm going to drop a case study in Telegram and then also provide a little bit of like, here's an action step if you want to start working towards this particular goal. So covering paid speaking, podcast monetization, brand partnerships, everything that we talked about here, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So that's the Fame to Fortune challenge. That link is in the show notes. If you want to join, it is a paid challenge. If you're listening to this before January 2020, or before January 26, 2026, you can hop in for $27. The price is going to go up to $47 after January 26th. So make sure you get in before then if this is feeling up your alley. And then, yeah, if you're listening to this way in the future, I think this is still like such a juicy challenge to do. You can listen to it paid podcast style, paid private podcast style, I should say. And that information will all be in the show notes for you too. So that's it from me, you guys. I hope you found this podcast really educational. I really tried to give you like education today. I mean, I'm sitting at a desk. I feel so professional. So If you like this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Please follow me at Katrina Owens PR on Instagram and on Threads. I'm Katrina Owens on LinkedIn, all those places. And I'll see y'all next week. Okay? Toodles.